We are here today with a big collection of reverb pedals. There's 10 of them in total. And we're going to be using them with synths. In this video, I'm highlighting my favorite 3 from the bunch, and you can catch the entire video in the link found in the description. As I'm sure you already know, reverb is an effect normally used in music and sound designed to create the impression of space. However, all of these pedals are advanced circuits that can do a lot more than just that. Blending in other effects like modulation, delay, and pitch shifting that allow me to expand the sonic palette of my favorite synths in a range that's between the textural, the ambient, and the sci-fi. The Bliss CXM 1978. Upon the release of this pedal, especially on social media, everyone just lost their minds just because of the aesthetic. It's such a beautiful looking pedal. I love the design of it. Motorized faders, which yes, is extremely cool. These faders definitely change the experience of the pedal, and I would say identifies this in this comparison as the most tactile pedal of the bunch. And I just find that the workflow is really unique and interesting, in particular with like the combination of these 3 knobs here. So outside of every possible combination here just sounding absolutely awesome, you could see here on the left in the small print, reverb time, bass, and mid. So these are all tied in together. So I'm gonna throw the reverb up to a ridiculous amount on these drums. So bass, let's throw the bass up. So we're hearing the bass, more bass in the reverb, and also just a ridiculously long reverb time on that bass as well. Same thing with mids, works in the same way. But then we have this like cross EQ here. So let's say if the bass is back up, we're choosing which frequency we really want to accentuate. So it's like all of these 3 work together, which is really interesting. It's a workflow that I wasn't super familiar with before this. So I find that you could just really dial things in with these 3 faders here. And that's pretty basic. There's a few Easter eggs that I like to get into with this pedal as well. There's a sparse mode that engages if you set to Hall mode, so that's red, and if the diffusion is set to low, which will sound kind of like a cloudy cluster of multi-tap delay. Another Easter egg setting is having the diffusion set to high and the clock set to lo-fi. In this case, the pre-delay knob will set the echo time. The Strymon Nightsky is kind of like the Blue Sky if it was a troublemaker crack addict. I see the Nightsky essentially as a reverb pedal with extended synthesis. You've got LFO modulation right here, so speed as well as depth, shape. There's also a shimmer section right here where you could choose the interval of your shimmer and also the mix of your shimmer independently from the overall mix. Another great thing, one of my favorite things about the Nightsky is that there's a dry mix knob as well as a reverb mix knob. So this just gives you a lot more control over the level of your mix. So let's say with any of these other reverb pedals, if I blast the mix, you're basically losing all of the dry signal. With the Nightsky though, you could have a nice fat dry mix and then a ton of reverb over top of that. So it's just a much bigger, like cleaner signal, I guess you could say. Let's look at source audio Ventris dual reverb. And by the way, this is the only dual reverb in the bunch, something to consider. So you'll see that if I go to A, I have my E-dome. I can of course change this to whatever reverb here that I want. I could change my parameters on this reverb. Those will be saved. I could go over to B, do the exact same thing, you know, maybe change whatever, and then go to A plus B, and those 2 settings have been saved and combined together as a dual reverb. And so when you're on A plus B, you could use mix, control 1 and control 2 as like a mini mixer. This is like the overall mix, and then the mix of A, mix of B. Let's take a look at some standout algorithms here. Firstly, E-Dome. This is the pedal's largest, most lush sounding reverb. So much like Cathedral on Context 2, the first pedal that we looked at. Great for ambience, just a different flavor. Offspring, this is one that you could kind of get to sound like a harp depending on how you tweak it. So I would say like a very unique and specific setting. And also keep in mind that there's a MIDI in for tempo sync, so if you'd like to get, rhythmically precise, that's an option as well.